Let's be honest for a second. We are all obsessed with the scoreboard. You wake up, you scroll through your feed, and you see the headlines. It's always the same names, isn't it? The titans of tech, the kings of industry. We are trained to look at the Forbes list like it's the ultimate leaderboard of a video game. It tells us, in bold letters, that Elon Musk is the wealthiest human being to walk the earth, sitting on a fortress of roughly $428 billion. Then you have Jeff Bezos, the architect of Amazon, trailing with $235 billion. Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, Warren Buffett, they are all there. To the average person, these numbers are incomprehensible. If you took a calculator and added up the net worth of the top 10 people on that list, you're looking at something close to $1.93 trillion. That is a staggering amount of money. It's more than the GDP of most countries. It looks impressive. It feels like they own the world. But here is the uncomfortable truth that financial media rarely talks about. The Forbes list is an illusion. It is a distraction. It's the kids' table of wealth. What if I told you that the people you think are running the world are actually just the ones loud enough to be noticed? I know, calling nearly $2 trillion pocket change sounds like insanity. You might be thinking, Solomon, have you lost your mind? But you have to understand the fundamental difference between new money and old money. New money buys super yachts and posts them on Instagram. Old money buys the debt of the country that the yacht is registered in. Throughout history, there have been a select few families, dynasties really, that manage to accumulate and control assets that make Elon's fortune look like a rounding error. We are talking about families like the Rothschilds, the Goldmans, the Saxes, the Lehmans, the Warburgs. When you start digging into the historical archives, specifically looking at the 19th and early 20th centuries, and you adjust their holdings for inflation and modern economic power, the math changes. The Rothschild family alone, at the height of their banking power, controlled wealth that would likely dwarf the top 10 billionaires of today combined. But here is the catch. You will never see them fighting for the #1 spot on a website. They don't want the trophy, they want the control. So why aren't they on the list? Is Forbes lying to us? No, Forbes isn't lying. They are just using a very specific, very limited metric. The Forbes list calculates individual and public fortunes. They look at stock tickers. They check how much Tesla stock implies Elon is worth at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. That is what we call fragile wealth. If the market crashes tomorrow, that net worth evaporates into thin air. It's paper wealth. The old families don't play that game. They figured out centuries ago that fame is a liability. If you are famous, you are a target. If you are on a list, the taxman knows where to look, and the public knows who to blame. These families hold their wealth in ways that a journalist simply cannot Google. They use mechanisms that 99% of the population doesn't even know exist. Complex trusts, sovereign debt, private islands, and holding companies nested inside other holding companies across multiple jurisdictions. They have mastered the art of being invisible. They realize that public equals vulnerable. So, while we argue about which tech CEO is the richest, the real treasury is locked away in private ledgers that will never see the light of day. If you are enjoying this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of the world's true elite, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We are peeling back layers that most channels are afraid to touch. Let's put the scale of this power into perspective. When Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion, the world stopped. It was chaos. Op-eds were written, stocks tumbled, people panicked. He bought a digital town square. It was a transaction. But imagine a level of wealth where you aren't buying a social media app. You are financing the government that regulates the app. The families we are discussing, these historical banking dynasties, they don't buy companies to tweet. They control the central banks that the companies borrow from. They influence national economies, interest rates, and geopolitical strategies without ever giving a single interview. While the tech billionaires are busy trying to get likes and engagement, the real power players are busy staying invisible. They understood a fundamental law of power. If nobody knows what you have, nobody can try to take it from you. Influence is most effective when it is silent. Naturally, when you have that much power and that much secrecy, people start talking. This is where the theories come from. You hear the names, you see the shadows, but you can't see the paper trail. That is by design. It's not necessarily some cartoonish evil plot in a dark room. It's extreme, calculated privacy. Think about it logically. If you had $1 trillion spread across 50 generations of your family, would you want everyone knowing where you live? Would you want your children's names in the paper? No. You would build a labyrinth. These families use private banking systems that date back to the Renaissance. They have turned privacy into a fortress. So while the public is distracted by the drama of Silicon Valley, the old money operates in a completely different dimension. A dimension where the only thing that matters is the preservation of the legacy, protected by a wall of silence. Here is the most fascinating part of this hidden world. It's not just about hiding money under a mattress, it's about how that money acts. Public wealth, like Amazon stock, fluctuates with the mood of the market. It's emotional. Private dynastic wealth is built on tangible, unshakable assets. We are talking about land, rare commodities, energy infrastructure, and government bonds. This isn't about making a quick 10% return this quarter. It's about ensuring that your great-great-grandchildren never have to work a day in their lives, no matter what happens to the economy. They have turned wealth generation into a boring, predictable, unstoppable machine. They don't chase trends. They own the casino. They own the house. And as we all know, the house always wins. They have mastered the compound interest of power over centuries, not just fiscal quarters. I have a serious question for you guys, and I want you to be honest. If you suddenly inherited $1 trillion tomorrow, would you flash it like the tech billionaires, buying sports teams and rockets? Or would you vanish into the shadows? Let me know in the comments what your move would be. Let's look at the history because it proves this isn't magic, it's a process. It's easy to think these people are a different species, but they started just like anyone else. Take the Rothschilds. The dynasty didn't start in a palace. It started with Meyer Amschel Rothschild selling old coins and antiques in a crowded German ghetto. He wasn't born a king. He was a hustler. He was a merchant. Or look at the Lehmans. Before they were a massive investment bank that shook the world, they were fabric sellers in Alabama. They were selling cotton and cloth to local farmers. The Goldman Sachs empire? It started in a tiny basement office in New York that probably wasn't bigger than the room you are sitting in right now. These weren't people who stumbled into money. They built systems. They transitioned from selling goods to selling money itself. They realized that the product wasn't the cotton or the coins. The product was capital. Then you have the Warburgs. This is a name fewer people know today compared to the others, but their impact is staggering. They took a small family-run banking operation and turned it into a force that could finance the reconstruction of Europe after major wars. Think about the sheer scale of that. We aren't talking about lending money to a guy to open a pizza shop. We are talking about lending money to nations to rebuild their cities, their roads, their armies. At one point in history, just 4 of these major families combined had a net worth that was likely higher than the GDP of entire industrialized countries. They had more liquid cash than the governments they lived under. That creates a unique dynamic where the government essentially works for the banker. That is a level of leverage that is almost impossible for us to comprehend today, where politicians seem to be in charge. In that world, the politicians were just customers. What did they do with all that cash? They didn't just let it sit in a vault. Today, these families control assets that are virtually immune to inflation. They own the most prestigious vineyards in France, where a single bottle of wine costs more than a luxury car. They own vast amounts of commercial real estate in the most expensive cities on Earth. They own art collections hidden in free ports in Switzerland. The Rothschild wines, for example, aren't just beverages. They are liquid assets, pun intended. They transformed paper money, which loses value every year, into hard assets that survive wars, crashes, and revolutions. Stocks can go to zero. A vineyard that has been producing the best wine for 200 years. That doesn't go to zero. They understood that to keep wealth, you must convert it into things that are real. This brings up a crazy thought. Do you think these old families still secretly pull the strings of the world economy from behind the curtains, or is their power exaggerated by history books? I'm really curious to read your theories below. Now, I know what you're thinking. Solomon, that's great for them. They are banking dynasties. I'm just a guy trying to pay my rent. And that is a fair point. But here is the twist. Neither were they originally, and neither are the people who truly understand these secrets today. I want to share a story about a mentor of mine. Let's call him Ronnie. His story is the classic American dream, but it started in a nightmare. His father fled Europe during the worst horrors of World War II. He didn't come with a trust fund. He came running for his life. Later, his mother was expelled from Egypt during the Suez Crisis. The government there literally seized everything her family owned. Their home, their business, their jewelry. They arrived in the new world with absolute zero. No assets, no connections, no language skills. They were refugees in the truest sense of the word. Imagine landing in a new country, let's say arriving in New York or Miami, with just the clothes on your back, no safety net, no rich uncle to call. That is where Ronnie's family was. They went from absolute poverty, living in cramped shared apartments, working menial labor, to building massive prosperity in a single generation. How did they do it? They didn't win the Powerball. They didn't invent the next Facebook. They simply applied the same ancient principles that the Rothschilds and the Goldmans used centuries before. It proves that the method works regardless of your zip code. It's not about the money you start with. It's about the code you follow. They moved from the bottom of the economic food chain to the top, not by luck, but by a system. This is the part that really resonates. They didn't just survive, they thrived. They used their lack of resources as a motivation, not an excuse. This wasn't just hard work. It was a systematic application of financial wisdom that has been passed down for thousands of years. We often think wealth is about getting a lucky break, but for these families, wealth is about resilience. It's about knowing that even if you strip a man of all his gold, if he keeps the knowledge in his head, he can get the gold back. The gold is just the result. The wisdom is the source. They understood that you can be broke, but you should never be poor. Broke is a temporary financial state. Poor is a state of mind. They refused to be poor. We've all had setbacks in life. What is the biggest financial restart you've ever had to face? Did you lose a job, a business, or an investment and have to build back up? Share your story in the comments. Let's support each other. So, what is this secret source? What is the manual they are reading? It turns out a lot of this wisdom comes from the Babylonian Talmud. It's ancient Jewish wisdom that deals with law, ethics, and yes, money. Families like Ronnie's, and even the banking dynasties, often followed specific principles derived from these texts. You don't have to be religious to use them. They are universal laws of economics. One of the most famous principles covers diversification. The ancient text literally suggests that a person should divide their resources into three parts. One part in land, real estate, one part in business, commerce, and one part in hand, cash, or liquid assets. That's basically modern portfolio theory, but it was written thousands of years before Wall Street existed. It creates a balance that protects you from total ruin while allowing you to grow. The second major shift is the timeline. The Forbes mindset, the modern mindset, is about quarterly earnings. It's about how much did I make this month? The ancient code mindset is about generational survival. The goal isn't to buy a Lamborghini today to impress your neighbors. It's to make sure your grandson can afford to go to the best university or start his own business. When you switch your brain from consuming to stewarding, your decisions change. You stop buying liabilities that rust, rot, and depreciate, and you start buying assets that appreciate and endure. It's about becoming a custodian of wealth. You view yourself not as the owner, but as the person responsible for passing the torch to the next generation brighter than you received it. The ultimate goal of these principles isn't just a high number in a bank account. It's a concept called shalom, peace. It's the peace of mind that comes from knowing you aren't drowning in bad debt. It's the security of knowing that if the economy crashes tomorrow, or if a pandemic hits, or if the market turns, you are insulated. We live in a world of high anxiety, especially about money. People are grinding, working 2 jobs, side hustles, and still feeling broke and stressed. The ancient way is different. It's about building a financial fortress so strong that you can sleep at night. It's about making money serve you, rather than you spending your entire life serving money. Why do you think our schools teach us how to work for money, how to get a job, but never teach us how to keep it or grow it like these families do? It feels intentional, doesn't it? Drop a comment with your thoughts on the education system. Okay, so we've talked about the billionaires, the hidden trillionaires, and the ancient history. What does this mean for you, watching this video right now? It means you have a choice. You can keep playing the game the way the media tells you to, chasing flash, getting into credit card debt, and seeking the appearance of wealth. Or you can start acting like a dynasty of one. You can start applying these principles today. You don't need millions to start. You need the mindset. You need to start thinking about asset protection, about privacy, and about slow, boring, sustainable growth. You are the founder of your family line. How you handle your money today determines where your family will be in 100 years. The story of Ronnie's family, coming from nothing and rebuilding, is the proof that this is possible for anyone. We are living in a time of opportunity that the Rothschilds could only dream of. We have access to global markets, digital assets, and information at our fingertips, but the trap is also bigger. The temptation to spend, to show off, to leverage yourself into oblivion is everywhere. Breaking the cycle means ignoring the Forbes illusion. It means realizing that real wealth is quiet. Real wealth is freedom. It's the ability to do what you want, when you want, without asking a bank manager for permission. If you are tired of running on the hamster wheel, working hard but seeing your bank account stay flat, maybe it's time to look at the old ways. Maybe it's time to stop looking for the next crypto moonshot or the next get-rich-quick scheme and start looking at the principles that have worked for 5,000 years. Whether it's organizing your finances, getting out of toxic debt, or planning for your kids' future, the blueprint is there. You just have to be willing to ignore the noise and focus on the signal. The Forbes list is for the public. The hidden treasury is for the wise. Which list do you want to be on? If you found value in this video, please do me a solid, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear this truth, and subscribe to Solomon's Treasury. We are going to keep uncovering the secrets that the wealthy use to stay wealthy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.